I guess, that we've known about for quite some time. So those of you that have been in the industry for a long time have been watching this happening for the last good 20 years. So starting from typewriters through computers, through technology revolution, I guess, we've all been on that journey. So today my smartphone has got more power than my entire office 20 years ago when I was first starting. And I think, notwithstanding what's happening with the virus, I think many of us, myself included, in some instances, are struggling with things like technology, for example. So normally we would hold a session like this face-to-face. Today we're doing it as a webinar, and let me tell you that behind the scenes we've had quite a bit of stress, you know, trying to connect everybody and make sure that everybody can hear us, and that we all are connected as far as technology. But just going back to the translation industry, there's a couple of interesting things that I have watched and seen and noticed. And one of them is that whenever you read industry materials, they tell you that the translation industry is growing, and it's a sustainable growth. And what that means is that there's more demand. There are developments in technology, in people connecting, in people talking to each other, in, you know, there's more work, but is there more work for us? So I think some of us might suddenly be feeling like we're being left behind, and to keep up is actually one of the biggest challenge I feel. There are many opportunities in this industry of ours as translators, but there are also quite a few threats, and how we keep up with it or not, you know, because we are seeing people leaving the industry is a big question. Are we, for example, better off by having all this technology? Are we better off, you know, by being always connected, always being on? You know, what about the supply and demand? Are the changes positive? Are the changes not so positive? What are we as professionals doing about it? What about the market? What's happening? You know, there are lots of language services providers that are, you know, setting up every day. Is that a good thing, or is it not a bad thing? Should we be supporting them, or is it, you know, something that we should be more knowledgeable about? Should we be worried? Are we just all paralyzed and not sure what to do? Are we collaborating enough? So what I'm putting to you are a lot of questions to which you need to develop your own answers, because everyone's different. So depending on the language that you might be working on, your answers and your situation might be quite different. I was really interested to hear that many of you are experiencing drop in work, because at Polaron we've never been busier. So it's an interesting feedback to hear from from all of you. And what I wanted to cover in my bit of presentation is really looking into the future a little bit, although that's a really difficult thing to do because nobody knows what's ahead of us. So there are certain givens in our industry, and that is that we are still human, that we're still needed and will be needed for the foreseeable future. But there's all this technology and cloud and pressure of needing to be switched on all the time that some of us might be struggling with. And if you think that you are struggling, think about someone, a big corporation like Google. And I know that they've improved a lot of their technology, but if Google can't get the translation right between languages like, say, Spanish or French and English to automate it, then what hope does anybody else have? And therefore, hopefully we are going to be around for many years to come. What the challenge is, how do you keep up with the changes in the industry? Where do you find your niche? Who are you as a translator? Because many of you that are of certain vintage, I guess, have had to reinvent ourselves many times over. What will be happening to all of us in the days, months and years to come is the big question that we all need to answer for ourselves, because everyone's different. But I think what is happening and what we're seeing more of is the requirement for multi-skilling. So to have not just translation skills, but know how to do desktop publishing. Perhaps some of us will venture into interpreting, which has now moved to remote settings. But I think if I, before I hand over to Nicholas, before I can leave you with something to think about is, you know, that there's always somebody that will do it cheaper and faster and perhaps better than you. The question is, how do we each of us individually find that niche and find room in this market? How do we collaborate and support each other in these tough times, because they have been tough? You know, certainly with globalization and things moving very fast, the question for each and every one of them is, how do we maintain sanity, firstly, but also how do we stick to being an industry which has got its own challenges, of course. So I might hand over to Nicholas now, I think with the next lot of slides, or is it me? We'll just wait for, okay. So we did say that we're going to be talking about strategies, and when we were developing the presentation for today, I just wanted to tell everyone that we were looking for things that are actually hopefully useful. These are my 5 tips for everyone on how to boost your performance. And the first thing I'm saying to you, and I still work as a translator and interpreter, not as much as I used to, but certainly translation work I do pretty much daily. Just measure how efficient you are. You know, how many words can you do an hour, a week, a day, because that'll help you understand whether your work is actually dropping, whether you're being efficient or not. So to be able to measure your productivity is really quite important. And I think with productivity and what I've talked about just before, you know, technology, make sure it's reliable, make sure you have a good internet connection. There are productivity apps out there like Asana, you know, so if you look at your workspace, whether it's a physical desk or your computers or your phone or your, you know, internet connection, all of it will play part, big or small, in how productive you are. I work a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, you know, especially now working from home, you kind of, you know, your home life and your working life has blended, except that for translators, that's the reality, and it's been a reality for many years now. So the question is, or the issue is to plan your day well and to prioritize. Some people are better in the morning as far as work, other people are better in the afternoon. So what is your most productive time? And if you know what it is, you can maximize that. The other concept I wanted to introduce you to today is monotasking. So if you spread yourself too thin, if you're doing too many things at the same time, that's not the most efficient way to work. So if you're working on a translation, switch off your social media, turn off your email, disconnect. Because what happens if you don't, you might be working on a sort of like an autopilot. I'm very guilty of that. So, you know, I think if you have a task at hand that requires a lot of concentration, try monotasking. And also have lists. You know, there's nothing more satisfying than ticking off things that you've done, you know, at the end of your working day. And it is important to make those lists realistic. And if you do them at the end of your day for the next day, or at the beginning of your day, then it'll guide you through your day, but also give you a sense of satisfaction.
Okay, hi guys, Nick here, as Andreas mentioned. I'll run through these next 5 points and maybe even answer a couple of the questions that are popping in the chat as I do so. the first point, and many of the points we've raised might be, common news to you, and you may have already heard of these before, but it doesn't hurt to reinforce what clients like ourselves will look for in an efficient and effective translator / interpreter. The first point I put here is to remain flexible and responsive. Now that's a no-brainer. Those that work flexibly and responsively will tend to get a little bit more preference out there in the field. And now Anna's actually put a question in the Q&A section here, which I've said we'll discuss in the latter end of this presentation, but I might touch on it quickly here using this point. Now, not getting paid enough is definitely a big problem we see with a lot of the population of translators and interpreters. Now, putting it into perspective as well, that may be the case of a new interpreter or new translation assignment that you've been given, and you may be just given standard rates. But I know that for our agency and many other agencies, when you tend to remain flexible or responsive and can offer those next level turnaround times, or be flexible within your working means, you tend to get a lot more work and tend to get a lot more focus from the project managers. So that's a really, really big point into boosting your performance, but also boosting perhaps that income that you receive from the LSPs out there. My second point here is to get all the contracting of the assignment right. Now, you've seen it to death, but there are many, many different email templates out there that LSPs might send you, whether it be for an interpreting assignment, a translations assignment, a design assignment, or even a voice recording assignment. There's various different templates you can get, but it does pay to read through those templates and ensure that all of the contracting components are correct, whether it be the purchase order, the deadline, or even little specifications on instructions. Even asking a question as simple as that can mean the world in terms of contracting. It can even clarify things for your project manager. So that's a huge one in my book, and I think in a lot of project managers' books out there, as to how to be a good T&I guess. Consider upskilling in some key areas. Now, I know most of you might be in a bit of a specialization within your work and like to stick to either translation or interpreting, or maybe even the more far out there things like DTP and typesetting. But I'll be very clear in saying it does not hurt to broaden your horizons and upskill a little bit into some areas that you may not be working in right now. If you're a translator, simply learning how to do a course on typesetting will earn you lots and lots in the future. I know that a few of our current translators that do work for us have got capability in desktop publishing and typesetting, and that's led to them receiving a lot of work in the long term on top of the current translation they're receiving. So it definitely does not hurt to upskill. Fourth point here is use reference materials and collaborate. Now, this is a bit of a double-edged sword because sometimes you might be swung into the deep end and not receive any materials from your client. But when they do, or if you ask, it will mean the world to you and your translation once you've got those materials and references. Having those references can help you put into light where the translation is going, what its intended purpose is, and even what it's going to look like in the final product. So make sure, if you can, ask if there are reference materials. The last one here, and this is for those organizations that might do feedback and review of certified translations, and it's accept feedback graciously. Now, this is a really big one for Polaron. You'll see right behind me, we've got it's backwards, but it's community approved translations. Most of you that work with us, and for those of you that don't know, we do a community approved translations product, which is multiple points of review and feedback, some even from community leaders and ethno-specific organizations. Being able to accept that feedback graciously is going to help you out drastically in your work and in your everyday lives if you're working with Polaron specifically, and anyone else there that does those kind of feedback translations. Not only do you look flexible and responsive when you accept that feedback graciously, but it's going to allow you to expand on your existing knowledge. Because although, yes, you've got the degree and the qualifications, it does not hurt to broaden your spectrum a little bit and take that feedback on if it is valid, obviously. So that's our 10 tips from Polaron. I might get Andrea to move on to the next PowerPoint here. Now, I'll speak on this as well. So this is a quick one on how to work with your Polaron PMs. Now, just quickly before I jump into it, I know that not all of you are existing translators or interpreters for Polaron. But for those of you that aren't, please do reach out after this webinar is over. We'd be happy to keep you in our books and have you on board as part of the Polaron team. So I'll jump into this really quickly. And now most of you that have worked with us are familiar with our lovely project managers. And that's Agata, Travis, Justine, just a few of the names there, those of you that have worked with them. And they've come up with a quick list that I'll be preaching to you guys today. The first point here is to communicate, communicate, and communicate. Now that's a really important one, because without communication, not only would our industry not exist, but everything would fail. So if you're able to communicate points effectively and efficiently with our project managers, it's going to mean the world to deliberating really quickly and developing a product in a responsive amount of time. But it's also going to lead to a better end product in terms of quality and accuracy. If you're able to communicate, ask questions, get answers effectively, then you're going to ultimately have the best type of translation possible. Ask questions. Now that's a lead on to what I've just spoken about there in terms of communicate, communicate, communicate. I know most of the times you like to finish the translation or interpreting assignment on your own, and that's that responsibility you guys take as freelancers. But please, I cannot stress this enough, ask questions. If there's any kind of disparity between what we say as project managers, please ask a question. If you're unclear on an instruction, please ask a question. These questions lead to meaningful answers and in the end lead to meaningful communication. So please ask questions. Now I'll try and speed along as quick as I can in the interest of time, but the next point here is to understand and follow instructions. Now, as another lead on from asking questions, when we give you a brief or when project managers or LSPs give you a brief, please read through the instructions. It was mentioned in the 5 points above, but it's imperative to delivering a perfect translation. If you're able to go through all the instructions, understand what the assignment is actually briefing, then you're able to communicate that message effectively. And at the end of the day, that's what we all look for as LSPs and clients. If you're likely to be late with a project, let us know ahead of time. We understand that things pop up or priorities take over. You are human at the end of the day, just as us, so we understand. All we ask is that you get in touch with us, whether it be via telephone or an email, and just let us know that you're not going to be able to meet the deadline. We are most of the time reasonable. If not, I'm sure that there's extra funds in it for you where possible, okay? The last two here, pay close attention to the formatting of your translation. Now, this is something as PMs we experience quite a bit. It can often be the issue with Word and PDF where you find that there's some issues in formatting. If there is, please pay attention to it. If you are unable to fix it, simply highlighting the document where the formatting errors occur is good enough for our PMs to find the source and fix the problem. The last point here is we appreciate it when you say yes to projects we offer, but also understand if you have other priorities from time to time. Now that's a loose one because obviously everyone likes to pick up tasks, but once again, Eve has touched on it before, monotasking, try it, it's good. It'll help you guys prosper in your translations career. If you're able to monotask, do one thing at a time and do it right, you're going to end up with better products, and those better products are going to be seen by clients and they're going to use you for it and they're going to welcome you into their databases, okay? Just a few quick tips on how to work with us. If you've got any more feedback for us on how we can work with you, we'll be sending out an email after this looking for your feedback, so please keep tuned for that. Okay, I might pass on to Eva here for some famous last words in the last 5 minutes we've got. So Andrea, please move forward.
Thank you, and I can't believe how quickly this 26 minutes has gone. But look, one of the things that I have learned, and I believe in, is that really, no matter how many diplomas you have on your wall, no matter how many years you've worked as a translator, you're only as good as your last one. And that goes for whether you're a freelancer, you work for agencies, or whoever you are. It is that attention to detail, and it is that last translation that will matter. We'd like to think of translation as not a commodity. We're very proud of the work that we do, and we don't want translators to be anonymous and feel like they are not part of the industry, but they somehow being, I don't want to use the word abuse, but we certainly, and I hope that's come through from Nicholas that just spoke, and Andrea, we treat translators, or we do our best to treat you as our colleagues. And it is a two-way street. And therefore, we do believe that collaborating, working together is the best way forward. Nicholas has used a couple of times the word client. And I need everybody to think of us as your client. And I think if we were to complain about anything, is maybe that sometimes translators, interpreters don't treat us like we are their clients. And maybe at the next session we can explore that further. But if you are a professional, we are going to treat you as a professional. We're going to treat you with respect every time. And perhaps we'd like to have a closer relationship with everybody, especially now that everyone's struggling a little bit. And the very last word, look, stay connected, stay positive, pick up that phone, send us that email. We're always available to debrief. The project manager's job is a challenging one, because they work, they buffer between you guys and our clients. But we always available to talk. So that's my last word moving forward and moving on.
Thank you, Nicholas and Eva, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Just to say goodbye to everyone and leave you our contact details. So as we said before, it is important to us for you to reach out. Any questions, any doubt, just don't hesitate to contact us. You're gonna have the contact details of us in this presentation. This presentation, as we said before, was recorded and we'll be sending out this presentation to you. And also you'll receive an email from me with a very special document with some of the strategies you can implement in your workplace to boost your performance as a translator and interpreter. We also recommend to complete our feedback survey just to make sure we can, improve our activities and our communications with you guys. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send us an email or call us. We'll be happy to reply to your questions. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, Andrea. Have we got 5 minutes left on the thing?
Well, we do have 2 minutes. Maybe we can just reply to a couple of questions.
All right.
Great idea.
I might do that because I don't want to leave too many of you guys in the room waiting. So I might, I'm sorry if I don't address all of the questions here, but I do want to touch on a couple of them here because they are important to you and they are recurring questions. The first one is in relation to accepting feedback. Thank you, Mona, for that question. We do see you and we do hear you. I just wanted to say that, yes, I agree with you. Some community feedback and secondary feedback as well is not always acceptable. And it is your role as the certified translator or the designated translator to dictate and to agree or disagree with those comments. At the end of the day, I say accept feedback graciously, but it does not mean that it is a necessity, obviously. If you see that there is community feedback that is not adequate and you can justify it, simply let us know and we're happy to take your word. most of the time it is acceptable and we're happy to go with it. Unfortunately as well, we do have clients too. And I hope you can empathize with us that sometimes we have some very angry and stern clients. Another question here is on low prices, and this was brought up a couple times in the chat by a few of you. And now I want to say that Polaron, in terms of an industry, in terms of the industry, does like to look after its translators, and we do hear you. If you are receiving rates that are low, please reach out to us and say, look, Nick, this is too low for me to take on the assignment, and we can negotiate with our clients and we can try and help you. Polaron's here for you guys just as much as we're here for our clients. So please, if you are seeing this common theme, let us know, and we'll either give you a valid reason for why that rate is the way it is, or we'll try and help you to get you that better rate. Okay. A couple other questions in here. Maybe just so what the landscape holds after COVID-19. Eva, maybe you can touch on this. Where do you see the work happening? Is it going to be in the legal sector? Is it in the health sector? Where are we looking at for COVID-19 translations?
So look, initially when the proverbial hit the fan, we were doing a lot of work for various organizations on basic stuff. So how you wash your hand, how you protect yourself, sort of health messages, things like plain English, but also translations in many languages. That has now stopped because everybody knows how to wash their hands, basically, hopefully. So where the work's going to come from is mental health, domestic violence, legal, medical. I actually see a lot of potential and a lot of positive in our future. Things might change, and they will change, where we might have to reshuffle things a little bit. And, the thing with any business, and most of you actually, even though you might not agree with me, you actually are running your own business. You have to understand who your competitors are, how much are people getting paid, how much people are offering. It's that negotiation and finding your own niche, perhaps specializing, or offering the market something that other people aren't offering. Only this morning I got an email from Western Australia from someone who said to me, I do Armenian and Arabic. Do you have any work? These are my qualifications. This is what I can do for you. I can do phone interpreting. I can do video interpreting. So the message is this: if you are sitting at home and waiting for somebody to knock on that door and say, hello, can you work for me? That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So it is, and to some of you, I'm sure this is not very palatable, particularly those ones that have been in the industry for a long time. It's a really tough thing to do. But it's about, think about who you are as a translation professional, someone that's very valued, and you have many years of experience, and, you have a lot to offer. But how do you position yourself on that market of today and of tomorrow is the big question. But I think the work will continue coming in. It'll just be maybe a little bit different. And we all have to think with this agility in mind about where we're going to be. Just like with the COVID information, we know how to wash our hands now. So where is the next job going to come from, which area? And I have to tell you, one of the things that I'm struggling with is the government funding that's being announced and no provision whatsoever being made for interpreting and translating. So I've had to become a lot more vocal and saying to whoever's going to hear me, where is the information in other languages? Where are you guys promoting use of interpreters? And the answer is nowhere. So we all have to speak up and make our clients know that it's not on, and educate people about the cost of not providing translating and interpreting services. So it is, moving forward, it is going to be a different landscape. But I often say, hey, I've lived through Russian tanks. This is nothing. So the very, very, very last word I'm going to leave you with is that we are going to be okay. It's about collaborating, communicating, talking to each other, and supporting each other. And the reason we wanted to do a webinar like this is, you know, to see if we can connect. And I know it's not super interactive and it's very short, but we didn't want to be talking at you, quite the opposite. Please fill in the survey that Andrea's going to send you. Please pick up that phone if you're worried, if you want to talk to someone. We're there. We maybe not your friends, but we people that are on your side. So please get in touch and keep in touch is all that I have to say.
Thank you,
Well said.
everyone. Thank you. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and hope you can join us for the next webinar next month. We'll send you the details. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.